Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the Virtual CISO Moment. Heather Noogle joins us today. She is the owner of CodaStack. Heather, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me on your show. Appreciate it.
So, would love to hear some of your journey, how you got into the cyber side of things, and really want to eventually get to talk a little bit more about what CodaStack does and the Cybersecurity for People YouTube channel series that you're running. So, why don't we start from the beginning?
Sure. I was going to be a band director when I went into college. And so one of the interesting things about as learning through education and also music and all the things that surround that is you get a lot of business experience actually, because there's a lot of moving parts. And in college, I decided that wasn't going to be for me. And I got a general degree and moved into tech. When my first jobs in HR, they realized I had tech skills. And so in the late 90s, if you had tech skills, you were in very high demand. You were on shadow IT pretty much because there were never enough IT people. And so the career went from HR to tech pretty quickly. And I own a business. I own a different business than CodaStack, part of it in export compliance space. So I spent 20 some odd years there and stepped out of that as we're trying to scale it. And as I'm stepping out, it's like, well, what's next? There's a whole lot more work left in me. What am I going to do? And as I was looking at building consultancy, doing software requirements, doing project management, cyber really smacked me on the head of there's so much need here. If you looked into the 90s where all the need was, it was in software development. So that's where I went, software and data. Now, if you look at the need, it's in securing everything we've built and are continuing to build and to optimize and to turn into 21st century things. So that's why I made the shift and I'm still making the shift. So
that brings us to CodaStack. What does CodaStack do? What is its main purpose?
Main purpose, the real passion behind this is the entrepreneurial community that I'm a part of really hasn't embraced the need to secure. And so I have a focus on some personas I built to really try to delve into what this demographic is. It's nonprofits and it is solopreneurs all the way up to companies that are 1 to 7 people, essentially. And these are organizations that often don't even have MSPs yet. So if they become successful and they start to scale, if they don't have cybersecurity thoughts and training as they're growing, that's not going to be when they add it. So the time to add it is as early as possible. In taking a look at what Verizon's DBIR says to do as the very early things, as the first steps of the cyber hygiene journey, and then to also understand what do we do after that, all the way into your incident response plan, your business continuity plan, and who are my partners as I grow? How do I train my people as I grow so that nobody's caught flat-footed? That is really where my passion is.
And as part of that, there's the YouTube series Cybersecurity for People. So what is that entailing?
That is Goofy me with this backdrop here, talking about all sorts of cyber hygiene things, trying to get people to be thinking about these things, how simple most of them are to implement, and also where possible, how interesting this field actually is, and maybe influence a niece, a nephew, a son, a daughter, or even yourself to delve a little deeper and maybe do some of this work as well. So I know that's fairly broad. That series is really for everyone. It's free. It is under an hour of content, but they're broken up. And I do plan to do some work to turn into YouTube shorts so that whenever you see Heather's face, you think, oh, cybersecurity, starting out locally, regionally, and then building nationally through my network on LinkedIn and all their friends. So that's the plan.
Well, I've seen a couple, and we'll talk about it in just a moment. Also want to ask you what you think is one of the most significant threats to small and mid-sized businesses, mainly small businesses. I have a feeling that it might center around awareness. So, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. vCISO Catalyst is the ultimate community for cybersecurity specialists who believe in collaborating to strengthen the security of small to mid-sized businesses. Join the vCISO Catalyst today and be part of a community that shares your passion for cybersecurity, knowledge, and professional growth. Together, we can create a safer world for everyone. Visit our website at www.vcisocatalyst.org and start your journey with vCISO Catalyst today. All right, so you've had 30 seconds to think about it. What's a significant threat for small business cybersecurity today?
It's ignoring it. If you look at the very small organizations I'm talking with, primarily working on getting their businesses up and going, it is not high on the risk register. If there even is one, we have cash flow needs we need to meet. We have business development to do to build that cash flow. And so all of the early things in entrepreneurship, we have a small business development center right here. I need to make sure that that small business development center knows me very well, so that that can be incorporated into the earliest thoughts as we do business. And again, the 21st century, it's a part of everything and a part of all that we do. So the biggest threat is ignoring that is true.
So why do you think that that is? Is it because a small business starting out, they're just overwhelmed with so many items that they need to do in order to basically get the business off the ground?
If you're not technical, you're not thinking technical things. Technical things are in support of your business, and computers have been around long enough that they're just part of our lives. And so when you get up, your computer is always on. It's something you use. Your smartphone is always on. It's something you use. It's just something to support what you do if you're in a mindset of strictly business. And it isn't until you start to look at people who've already worked for companies where these practices are in place that we espouse. Go ahead and do all the cyber hygiene, do all the training beyond just once a year. We talk about the things. If they've worked for other small companies before they become business owners, then chances are they've never seen security awareness training. They've never been through a formal process. And I think a lot of the entrepreneurial mindset people are that way. They get going, they get started, and they do their things. And this is not people in the tech space. This is, I have a small store selling boutique items, or maybe I'm a VA and I'm so virtual assistant and I'm doing that sort of work, but I've grown really fast and I don't have these practices in place. So I really try to step into where people are and work on that in conjunction, especially here locally. We have what's called the Missouri Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. And that is a local nonprofit I do some volunteer work for. And we are just getting going, collaborating with the colleges and universities and with people in the community to get some training beyond what they've done on their own with real world skills in a real world environment. It's super exciting. So where I am, which is right in the heartland, is a fantabulous place if you want to get going, starting in anything with cyber, and also in being aware of what you need to do as a super small organization and getting your foothold in your business and making sure you can keep it operating in this online environment.
So the getting back to the biggest threat of doing nothing, it's been my experience that typically a small business will start to do something under one of a few conditions. One might be they're starting to get customers who are asking for evidence that they have a cybersecurity program. A lot of times that's asking for like a SOC 2 audit, something like that. Sometimes it's where they get hit and they get dinged and they have a cyber incident and they realize, oh, I thought everything was okay. I had a firewall, or I thought Microsoft 365 took care of that right out the gate, or all that stuff. Or the third, and I guess the most preferable, is being proactive. And that is, my assets, my information assets, my infrastructure assets are critical to my business. I'm still at a loss sometimes as to what is the best way to get through the entrepreneurial mindset where the startup mindset, maybe I should say, that they're so focused on this great product that they're building and this agile scrum, whatever thing going forward, and not thinking about it. So, which brings me to talking a little bit about the YouTube series a little bit more, the cybersecurity for people. I viewed a few. First of all, I'll mention, it's just like, I know one of yours talks about password managers and specifically LastPass, because I was like you, I was giggling. It's like, well, I recommended LastPass up until that issue happened last year. But I like the fact that I think that is one way to get into people's radar who who are so focused on wanting to get information in small snippets. We have attention
Mhm.
deficit disorder. A few minutes of like talking, like I'm probably going over talking right now. But talk a little bit about the approach. I know you mentioned, for example, like music theory in here, and I'm very interested to know how are you using music theory to help with cyber awareness?
With music, and if you're going to do any composition or anything where you're going to modify what's on the page, improvisation with jazz, for example, you have to know the rules so that you know when to break them. And you also need to know when not to break the rules, when it doesn't fit, when it doesn't work, when the rhythm isn't there. So the way I do a lot of writing in addition to these videos, the way I speak, the way I write is all based on music and poetic training and all the liberal arts things that we like to call soft skills. So I hope those things come through and make me a little bit whimsical and conversational where I can bring some of these points across and I'm not dry like some of the textbooks are out there. So those are the elements I try to bring in from music theory, and the learning that I've done is to try to show up and be a whole person. And oh, by the way, this is something I really, really need to impart to you is important about cybersecurity, which you probably aren't thinking.
Well, I know that so much of the training in cybersecurity is just that it's dry. And people, they'll turn on a video that they have to do for like once a year. They'll click start and then they'll ignore it while it's playing. You know, they still have the window open, so they're going to get credit. Do you feel that these bite-sized chunks have a better chance of penetrating into folks' psyche, I guess?
I think so. I see this as the approach that many of the security awareness vendors are taking as well. The companies that are doing that, they're putting enough personality into it that this is interesting. And of course, trying to find that line of, is this too kitschy, too campy, to try to go through and do that. Since my target is not really necessarily served by these companies, at least today, I'm hopeful to take the best of the little bit of campiness and a whole lot of information. And each one of these videos has a slide on it that has some advanced information in it. So if someone were to be more advanced, then that person might be tempted to watch another one and might not be advanced in that area. So some additional things like on the backup video, there's talking about 3-2-1 backup. So just something more to explore. And these, again, most of them are under 3 minutes. A couple of them are about the 1 minute point. I am hopeful that I can get some audience, again, locally. I'm just stepping into this. The Dakota Stack's been around a while, but I've been doing some long-term assignments. So I'm really just not stepping into this in August with some plans to start talking with some of the local HR providers here and make sure that they know about my services, as well as an office I'm setting up. And that'll give me some opportunities to do some seminars here locally and really get my word out here over what this is, why to practice it. And then in bigger small businesses and also medium-sized businesses, conversations with people in the environments in which they work, just going back to that same sort of software requirements type of work that I used to do. A whole lot of is sitting down with the people who do the work to determine where can we make your practices better and also not make cybersecurity a hassle on you, but instead something that you can be proud of that you're doing. Like with multi-factor authentication, every time I have to enter my one-time password is a little bit of a victory of, okay, you can't get in this here. You can't get here because of what I'm doing. This is an extra step I am taking to make you not be able to get in here, cyber criminal. So.
And one of the things that I did like from, I think, one of your earlier videos is a simple description of cybersecurity related to being chased by a bear. And in essence, it's like, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you, your partner, which of course that makes the partner feel bad. But then the partner is going to try to do better to train so that they can run faster than you. And then you have to do the same. So in some ways, I mean, some people might think about that statement and immediately think, well, you're just relying upon other folks to be worse than you are. It's not really that. It's that if other people realize that they are the worst of the two, then they're going to try to be better. And then you really see like this constant feeding where one group helps another, and helps another. Is that fair to say?
I think it's a good place to start with people who are not doing much with cybersecurity now, is the understanding that if you become frustrating to somebody trying to poke around and get access to your system, that likely that person will abandon. So while it's not a complete metaphor, a lot of people like to ding that one because it won't work in bigger organizations. It works very well with small ones, in my opinion, who are not yet really into that we're doing something proactive.
I would submit it probably works in bigger organizations among business units. It's like, and
Cool.
and in larger organizations that I've been a part of, actually, we would. That's the best way to say it. I wouldn't say compare risk assessment results between business units, but we would to an extent. We wouldn't make it like a competition, but it would. If there was one group that was significantly better than the rest that I was talking with, I'd let them know. I was CISO for City of Nashville, Davidson County for a while, and like 50 plus organizations. And yeah, for the ones that were doing really well, I told them, it's just like, yeah, you're doing really well. You should get a pat on the back. For the ones that weren't, well, hey, these guys are doing better than you guys are. Maybe you want to up your game a little bit. So I
You never
like
do that with teenagers, but I can see why it might work with departments.
that. Absolutely. So, how many episodes do we have now that you've done so far?
I did a series in January, and then I stepped into something almost full time and doing some teaching. So I've got about, I'd say, 10 videos out there. Some of them are on generative AI and some disclaimers there on watch what the outputs are, because that seemed interesting. And then I've got some plans to make a course, like a level 2, those are level 1, something that is a little more advanced, and then those will be free. And then do something that is more business in depth that I will probably charge something for, just to recoup cost, essentially.
And just to be clear, you're not targeting just the Missouri area. You're targeting way beyond. Okay.
For
You
the
mentioned
in-person, yeah.
right. You mentioned generative AI, and I think the advice, I haven't gotten to that one yet, but about be careful what it comes out with. Is that basically you're saying verify the output?
Verify the output. There are 2 videos out there, and I put something on LinkedIn as well. My dad had this personality when I was a kid called Homer Thought Quab, and Homer was just obnoxious, and he wasn't my dad at all. So he would put on this personality and be silly, and so I made up a bunch of stuff about Homer Thought Quab. I really didn't make it up. I just asserted it, and ChatGPT and Bard like to take it as true, and they did some interesting things with Mr. Homer Thought Quab. You can actually Google Homer Thought Quab, which is THAWKQUAB, and maybe see some of these exploits and how I did what I did. And there are the 2 videos about this. In addition to that, with Homer Thought Quab, I asked Bard, Google's Bard, about my company, Codestack, because it's been around long enough that it can probably find what it needed to. And it made up a whole bunch of seemingly plausible things about me as the owner. It just asserted that because I've got cybersecurity in my offerings, that I have a CISSP, which I do not yet have because I don't have enough time and study in to go for that. Many other things. It said my firm did penetration testing. So again, it will fill in any gaps just to try to please you, as though it were a small puppy. So.
Okay. I see. I was actually thinking about maybe I shouldn't. Well, I'm going to say it anyway. One of the things that irks me is people that are trying to tell you what you want to hear. And I'm like, just tell me the truth. Tell me what you really think. Don't try to please me. Because the more you try to please me, the more you're making me angry,
Yes.
And I haven't really encountered that yet with generative AI. I'm a ChatGPT user myself, but that's an interesting thing to look out for. So it's not just whether or not that the information that they give you is not correct because they have some sort of a learning issue. They learned the wrong thing. It's that they're actually making assumptions which aren't true. Like you were saying, the CISSP. That's interesting. I did not think about that. That's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast, because I always learn something that I didn't think I was going to learn, whomever I was talking to. So you're going to take you're going to eventually do the CISSP. That in and of itself is a significant undertaking as well. I don't know if you've started studying for that, but
Too early.
that was the hardest exam I think I've ever taken, which includes some pretty difficult ones that I took in fluid dynamics when I was in college, like
Ooh.
2 years ago, or too many years ago, I should say. So,
Yeah.
well, I wish you luck with studying for that. Certainly, that's going to be pretty stressful. And certainly, being an entrepreneur, business owner is stressful in it of itself, and being in cyber is part of that as well too. One of the things that I try to emphasize to folks is that it's so important that it's not just limited to cyber, but it does seem like that both cyber and business owners, small business owners, tend to overwork themselves. Particularly, I know as a small business owner, you don't have hours. You're kind of like working and thinking all the time, but you got to get away from it, right?
Yeah.
So what is like one thing that you do to get away from that stress?
All right. Well, I might read a book or two, but I also like to be outdoors. So
A book or two, like the
cycling.
ones
Yeah.
behind you there? You only have a few.
Yeah, only a few. We have 27 bookshelves full of bookcases, bookshelves full of books. So that, and then outdoor things, gardening, walking, spending time with friends, picking up pickleball with a friend. We'll see how that goes. So,
How long have you been playing pickleball?
like a month.
Okay, well, talk about something that's storming the. I took an intro class about 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is interested in it. I'm a former racquetball junkie, and racquetball kind of has gone by the wayside. It's hard to find a place that you can play anymore. But pickleball, when I got out there in the class, it kind of ignited some of that competitive spirit in me. So I'm with you on that. I think it's an interesting game. I thought at first it was kind of silly. It was like
Yeah.
kind of like a combination between ping pong and tennis, but it's like, no, it can be pretty competitive. So,
Yeah.
well, future plans. Do you plan to be a pickleball champion like in the next few years?
I think the CISSP will come before a pickleball championship. And
Okay.
both of those are a little ways away. I just built this business. Right now, I'm in that. I've talked about exactly where I want this to go, but in building this, paying the bills. So anything I've got tech skill in, I'm up for hire on that and trying to get to about half and half split. So I just got
Awesome.
an office, really excited about that. I think I mentioned that earlier in the show. And I think that shows that I'm, at least to myself, that I'm serious. And I've been working from home for the better part of 18 years, other than the teaching stint. So just trying to feel into that, show up where I'm needed, and it'll work itself out. That's what I've found over the years.
I just realized I have one more bonus question. You mentioned
Yes.
I was going to ask you about. I understand you're a new Starlink owner.
Yeah.
Or not owner.
Yeah.
Sorry, Elon. A Starlink user. In the short time that you've been using Starlink, thumbs up, thumbs down, pretty decent, or
Yes, thumbs up. It is 1 day now, a solid 1 day of Starlink coming off of my country bumpkin internet. I live out on 5 acres, and being a work from home person, we had to make sure that there was adequate internet. And it barely passed when we moved here. And so Starlink is at least 1 day later, 16 times faster than what I had.
very good. Well, maybe I'll send the link to this podcast to Elon and see if I can't get some ad revenue from him.
Yeah, please tell him I really don't own his company, because
well, if he gives me any revenue, I'll share a little bit with you.
okay.
Heather, thank you so much for joining us. It's been fascinating. Like I said, I always learn something new, and I'll have to think about the next time I use ChatGPT. It's like, are you trying to make me smile or what?
Thanks again.
Stay secure.